All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Motown Sports Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and I'm joined by Jimmy as always. How are you doing today, Jimmy?
I'm doing good, thanks.
It's good. It's good. So, there still hasn't really been any relevant news in the last couple of days. I know a couple players have done some press conferences recently, but there hasn't really been anything significant or newsworthy to come out of there, just some basic upcoming events and how they're doing their virtual stuff recently. So I guess we'll just try to find some fun little topics that we can talk about today. And first up, I know that Jimmy, you wanted to discuss the Vegas odds for some of our rookies this upcoming year. And personally, I'm not too familiar with all the Vegas odds and all that stuff and the prop bets and stuff. So if you want to go ahead and just jump right into that, you can go ahead.
All right, it's just a fun thing to discuss and look at because sometimes Vegas has maybe a tiny more insight. It's the whole collective wisdom thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jeff Okuda. What's his INT over under? It's at 3. What do you think about that, Jordan?
I honestly think it should be a little bit higher. I know this is all just prop bets, and I know this is also going to be depending on how much playing time he gets, but I really think 3 is kind of the low for him in terms of what he can accomplish. Again, if he comes out and starts immediately from day one, and again, if he can stay healthy and play all 16 games, then I possibly think that he can exceed that very fast.
All right, so here's a pop quiz for you. How many INTs did the NFL leader have last year? What
I
do you
want
think?
to say, I think it was 9.
6.
6. Wow.
Stephon Gilmore tied with Anthony Harris and Tre'Davious White. So
Wow.
really low number,
Yeah,
surprisingly.
that
The
is.
year before that, the high was 7. The year before that, Slay tied for the high with 8.
Hmm.
Uh, so
I wasn't even
so
close the last few
yeah,
years.
so it's 3 INTs is actually probably a pretty big number.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a good comparison for him is Denzel Ward. He was the number 4 pick in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So Okuda's number 3 pick out of OSU. Denzel Ward had 3 INTs in his rookie year. That year, Jair Alexander, who we're all familiar with the Packers, he had 1 INT in his rookie year. Only one cornerback was drafted in the first round last year, DeAndre Baker. He had 0. 3 does seem like low just at first glance,
Yeah.
but you might want to go under on that. Even if he has a fantastic year, 3 INTs is still tough to get.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, when you're playing cornerback, it's hard to gauge that because it also goes back to how often you get thrown to. Because that was one of Darius Slay's arguments all the time. Is
Right.
people point out wasn't getting the interception numbers the last couple of years, but he claims that he's so great, no one's going to throw to him. So
Exactly.
if he's going to be as good as we're hoping he is, then and he won't be getting thrown to as often, he won't get the opportunities to get interceptions. Also, if
Yeah.
you look at some of the quarterbacks that we're going to be playing this year, we've got like Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Kirk Cousins. I mean, and even more to list. That's just the top off my head. So we've got some top QBs we're playing against this year as well. So,
Right. And what's the best way to get INTs is QB pressure.
mm-hmm.
Get that QB under duress, throwing bad passes. And if our pressure is as bad as last year, it's going to be hard for anybody to get INTs.
Yeah, it's going to be rough, but we can just hope that our defensive line has been improved more.
Yeah. All right. So next guy, DeAndre Swift.
Mm-hmm.
His over under for yardage for the season is 625. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, if I had to make a bet again, I'm going over. I don't know how much over I'm going because again, it comes back to with running back it comes back to 3 things. One, how much we actually run the ball. 2, our offensive line play and how well they can perform. And 3, how many snaps is he actually going to get in a crowded backfield with Kerryon Johnson, Bo Scarborough, and our
Right.
newest running back, Jason Huntley, if he
It's
makes the
going to be,
team. Yeah,
yeah.
so it's a crowded backfield, and that's what I'm saying. At first glance, like when you said, you kind of look at it and you're like, I do think that he can exceed 625, but and when he got health and all these other factors that play into a running back's position, it really is up for determination.
Yeah, I would throw in a fourth factor, which is how many games are we leading, and how good of a team are we? If
Yeah.
we're 3-13 again, we're going to be just throwing the ball in the second halves of all these games. So
Exactly.
hopefully we're a 10-6 team and we can just pound the ball the entire 4 quarters.
Yeah, we know that's one thing Matt Patricia has preached, and I know Darrell Bevel, the new offensive coordinator, same thing. That's kind of his style. They like to just run the ball and control the clock the entire game. So hopefully that's something
Yeah.
we can try to do this year.
Yeah, I'm optimistically hoping he's going to go over 625. I can easily see him having 1 or 2 100-yard games. So hopefully he stays healthy and can do it.
Yeah.
Now, an interesting thing is where he ranks in the offensive rookie of the year standings in these Vegas futures. He's sixth, which is great. That's high. He's
Yeah.
only behind Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was the first running back taken, Cam Akers, Jonathan Taylor, and Tua. He's ahead of every single wide receiver.
Yeah.
And this brings up what we discussed in previous podcasts, which is in the second round, the most impactful position you can probably take is a running back as far as their impact in their rookie year. So the Vegas futures sort of show that this guy's number 6 in offensive rookie year possibilities.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's extremely high potential. And also, as you just mentioned, I think running back is another one of those positions where you try to get as much value as you can in the first few years under that cheap contract, because paying running backs for a high amount of money is, we've seen in the past, is not the smartest play. So I think trying to get the most value within those first few years is definitely a bigger priority for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think drafting running backs, even though a lot of people feel like it's a bad idea to draft running backs, I'm of the opposite opinion. I think drafting running backs in the second round is a great idea. You're getting at a inexpensive deal for 4 years, and you're getting production from day one.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about defensive rookie of the year. These numbers may surprise you even more than the offensive rookie of the year. Akuda and Aquara are both tied for the 6th best odds, along with 13 other players.
Wow.
So Okwara, a third-round pick, is tied for 6th best.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing. He actually has better odds than Clavon Chaisson, who Lions fans may have wanted. He was in the first round. He's an edge rusher.
Yeah.
Also, he has better odds than Gross Matos, who went in the second round, who we thought maybe we should have taken instead of DeAndre Swift. So somehow in the third round, he actually has better odds than some of the other players. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it's good to see.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why either. I know he was a little bit highly touted. Again, coming in, I know it was his leg injury that kind of dropped him down in the draft a little bit. But yeah, he was extremely, I think before the injury, he was projected as a first-round pick at the beginning of the season. So I think they're just kind of factoring it into how he'll fit in their style of defense, fitting into Matt Patricia's style of defense. Again, playing alongside his brother, that he just has that extremely high ceiling as well as DeAndre Swift. But I find it weird that they're kind of tied. Like you said, he's a third-round pick, and he's tied with Jeff Okudah, who some is claiming was the best cornerback coming out of the draft.
Yeah, the way you win DROI is get a lot of sacks. So hopefully Okwara can just be a sack specialist, even if he does nothing in the run game or really anything else. If he can pick up 8-10 sacks, just either with luck or skill, that's how you win Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Exactly. All right. And so moving on, the next topic that we'd like to talk about today is the transformation of Jarrad Davis recently. I know he's been attending the Michigan Elite Conditioning for Athletes, and they've been helping athletes from all sports take their bodies to top physical condition. In the past, they've worked with Zach Zenner, Deshaun Sheed, Devon Kennard, and now most recently they've done Christian Jones and Jarrad Davis as well this season. And if you want to see pictures for yourself, you can just go to their website. I think it's just meccaelite.com, I believe, or just mecca.com, something like that. But yeah, they have pictures of all the before and afters of all the athletes they've done, not just Lions players. But you can see for yourself what they've done with some of these athletes is actually pretty remarkable. They've even worked with Derek Fisher from the Chiefs, who, if you see the before and after pictures, he looks pretty incredible the way they've done. But going back to the original topic, Jarrad Davis. So do you think I mean, I know Jarrad Davis has always been very physical and very powerful, but do you think this is one way that could possibly help save his career if this is going to help improve him? Like you mentioned earlier, just get more sacks or just improve his play completely.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just touch on the Michigan Elite thing.
Mm-hmm.
If they're the ones that are posting these pics for marketing reasons, I wouldn't necessarily take them at face value. The
Right.
pictures can be slightly altered, photoshopped. Somebody's flexing during the before, after pick, and not flexing in the before pick.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to take a whole lot into that. I still remember Zach Zenner's picture from last year where he looked like he just turned into a beast.
Mm-hmm.
But did it help him that year in his career? No, he got cut. It really didn't help him.
Exactly.
So as far as Jarrad Davis, that's the concern here. I have absolutely no issue with turning fat weight into muscle weight.
Right.
That's not an issue at all. However, my issue is gaining the reported 20 pounds of weight. That's a lot.
Yeah.
He's starting to turn the same body type as the Christian Jones, or this bigger pounder type.
Mm-hmm.
So there are pros to that: increased strength, increased ability to take on blocks, maybe shed blocks, better ability to do that bull rush up the middle that he was so successful at last year.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be a running back seeing the Jarrad Davis freight train coming up the middle this year
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
But there are cons to that as well with that weight gain, which is decreased agility,
Mm-hmm.
decrease acceleration, decreased ability to change direction. And from a medical injury type standpoint, some people can handle an extra 20 pounds, some people can't. Uh, the human body's tendons, ligaments, and cartilage don't really gain strength like muscles do.
Mm-hmm.
So, can those body parts handle the extra body weight? So, I'd be concerned about ACL tear, Achilles tear in the short term, and longer term, meniscus and articular cartilage breakdown with the extra weight.
Yeah. Exactly. And as you mentioned, one thing about the deceleration and everything like that, we know Jarrad Davis has already struggled to cover tight ends and some faster slot receivers and stuff like that in coverage. So if you add on this extra weight and stuff like that, that's just going to make them even worse in that category. But again, as you mentioned, it kind of just helps him with the bull rush and the pass rushing ability. So it kind of, I've been saying this all offseason that they've kind of been using Jarrad Davis in the wrong way and that they need to be using him more as just a specialist type of pass rusher, a specialist type of down the middle type rusher. And I think they might be going forward trying to utilize him in just a specialized type role instead of just a Mike linebacker or something like that.
Yeah, it would be nice to see him get a lot of pass rush opportunities this year because we need somebody to pick it up. We don't have an elite pass rusher out there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have guys who are going to win one-on-one battles consistently. So we're going to have to scheme it. We're going to have to get Jarrad Davis rushing against our running back.
Mm-hmm.
So that hopefully we can get some pass rush out of Jarrad Davis this year.
Yeah, hopefully. Like I said, we can just try to use him in like that type of specialized type role. I mean, I don't know if that'll always be good because then that obviously means if teams see him out on the line, they're going to be like, oh, they're going to be blitzing and they're going to be pass rushing. So they might have to come up with some specialized way to use him. But again, hopefully it's just not strictly out at linebacker anymore, even though we're kind of, I wouldn't say slacking in that terms, but that's definitely not one of our deepest groups on the team at the moment.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, and so moving on to our last topic of the day, I wanted to talk about Kenny Golladay for a little bit. I know we're a little bit late to the conversation, but there's been a lot of people discussing whether he deserves to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And there's a lot of discussions going back and forth, and you can kind of debate either side of it. I guess before we get into the numbers and specifics, I guess what are your initial thoughts on him being the highest paid wide receiver?
Yeah, I wanted to do a little deep dive into the whole Kenny Golladay potential extension. And I want to throw Taylor Decker into the mix too because he's up for extension, and one guy's extension might affect the other guys. So it's going to be fascinating to see how the Lions handle both those guys this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would want to extend both guys as they've both been real good, solid players. They're both rock solid from a character standpoint, no off the field issues, no social media issues, and we know that's important to the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
There also have been no significant injury concerns for either guys. Decker had a shoulder issue in 2017 for which he had surgery, which put him out for 4 to 6 months, but he seems to have recovered fine from that.
Mm-hmm.
And he also had a back issue in week 1 of last season against Arizona. If you remember, he had a horrible game that for week 1, and
Yeah.
we all thought, oh my God, this is a big problem. But then he took week 2 off because of the back, rested it, and then he was solid and totally fine the rest of the year. So the main obstacle in extending either of these players is if their demands are just too high. They're both real good, solid players, but they're not elite.
Yeah.
So if they're requesting to be paid at the elite level, say top 2 or 3, or even top 1 of their position, then it's going to be just a tough situation for the Lions and a tough decision to make. I liken it very much to the Cowboys situation right now with Dak Prescott. Prescott's a homegrown player, excellent character, real solid good player, maybe in that top 10 to 20 range of quarterbacks, but he's not an elite quarterback. He's probably asking to be paid as an elite quarterback,
Yeah.
and probably asking to be paid the number 1 quarterback right now. So that's why we see the struggle that the Cowboys are having trying to extend Dak Prescott. This has been going on for months. They've been arguing about this in the media for months. It's not exactly this quiet, peaceful negotiation. So they like Prescott, but they don't want to make him pay the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And we're sort of in that same situation with Golladay and Decker. So let's talk about Kenny Golladay. You asked, is he worth $22 million? Well, let's look at the other wide receivers out there right now. We have Julio Jones, averaging $22 million. Amari Cooper, $20 million average. Now these averages are all based on the full length of the contract. I know you got to take in guarantees and all this stuff into account, but it's still a good general guideline to how much we might expect Kenny Golladay to get.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Michael Thomas at $19 million a year. Tyreek Hill at 18. Odell Beckham at 18. A.J. Green at 18. Mike Evans 16. DeAndre Hopkins 16. Brandon Cooks 16. A couple division guys. Thielen's at 16. And Devontae Adams at 14.5. So where does Kenny Golladay slot into this entire group of receivers? Do you have any thoughts?
Well, my first initial thing is I would like to pull up some stats from who you said. Who the first two? Jones and...
Yeah, Julio, Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas, Tyreek Hill. Those are the top 4.
Which Michael Thomas, I already know, is way past him in stats because he led the league in receptions and yards last year. I think he broke a record for receptions. If I might be wrong about that.
No, he's a statistical monster.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that is Drew Brees. He's
Yeah.
a Hall of Famer.
If we could make the argument, what if you put Michael Thomas on Lions? How many...
Exactly. I feel like Michael Thomas and Golladay are sort of similar players. They're both tall, physical, great hands, not necessarily that quick or fast. If you put Kenny Golladay on the Saints, he might be leading the league in receptions and yards too.
That's what I'm saying. It'd be interesting to see what you do if you flip Michael Thomas and Kenny Golladay, and then that, I mean, obviously it'd be a parallel universe, but it'd be a cool comparison to this whole argument if he deserves to be paid as a top wide receiver, because we've talked many times it comes down to scheme, quarterback, system, how much they like to run the ball compared to passing the ball. It all depends. The one thing, though, you can definitely say that Kenny Golladay, personally, his stats have improved immensely every single year. The only thing is he's down 5 receptions from last year, but other than that, he's gone up in yards. His average catch is 18.3 yards last year. His longest reception was 75 yards. He had 11 touchdowns. It's like he's just moved up in all the meaningful stat categories.
Yeah, this is playing half the year with a second and third string quarterback too.
Exactly.
And second and third string quarterbacks weren't even on the training camp roster. It's guys we just picked up randomly off the street halfway through the season.
So yeah, and again, I've mentioned this on the podcast before. That's one of the reasons I respect DeAndre Hopkins so much. Is because his first few years in the year, he was going through quarterbacks like it was nothing, but he still just put up monster numbers every year. So, and I feel like Kenny Golladay could be that type of player too. If he plays a whole year with a healthy Stafford and healthy Golladay, and again, if our offense is performing as well as it should, if Swift can be what we think he is, so they're not just double covering Golladay and Jones every single play, I think it'll be really interesting to see what our offense can do this year.
Yep. I think maybe the best comp for Kenny Golladay is Mike Evans. They're both just big physical guys, not necessarily fast or quick. They win by winning at the point of attack with
Yeah.
those jump balls, the ball in the air, cornerback draped all over them. But man, they just come down with the ball just
Yeah.
incredibly at an incredibly high rate. Mike Evans makes 16 million a year. I would love it if we could get Kenny for 16 million. But what happens if he's asking for 20 or 22? That's just a tough decision. So I wanted to talk about how much Kenny Golladay and Taylor Decker have made already in their careers, because that may impact how readily we can sign these guys. So Taylor Decker's rookie deal, which he's finishing up right now, has been 5 years, $21 million total.
Yeah.
Kenny Golladay in 4 years has made $3.1 million total.
That's the difference
So,
between being a third and first round pick.
yeah, yeah. So he's made relative chump change. He hasn't made that much money. Now let's talk about how much guaranteed money he could make in this extension. Let's look at Amari Cooper, who got signed in March of this year. Similar type player to Kenny Golladay. He got 40 million fully guaranteed and is averaging 20 million a year from the Cowboys. So if we present an offer to Kenny Golladay with 40 million or 35 million guaranteed, that is life altering money for this guy. He's going from $3 million total in his career to 35 million guaranteed. That's an enormous amount. That's a lot different than, say, giving the Taylor Decker 35 million guaranteed, because he's already made quite a bit of money. Sure, it's still a lot more money, but it might not be life altering for Taylor Decker. So Kenny, if I'm advising Kenny Golladay, if I'm his agent or if I'm his family and friends, I'm telling him, sign the deal, Kenny Golladay. Sign it now. Sign it this offseason. Don't take that risk of playing out this last year of your contract, taking the risk of injury, taking a risk of a drop in play. It's just not worth it, because you just haven't made enough in your career yet to be turning away 35, 40 million guaranteed.
But as you and me have mentioned before, he was sort of kind of older as a rookie too when he came into the league, because he was, what, 24 when he came into the league? 23?
Yeah, I want to talk about their ages too, because that's an important point to bring up. Right now, Kenny Galladay's 26 years old. His birthday's in November. Taylor Decker is also 26. His birthday's in August. So both guys will be 27 years old during this season. So a 4-year extension for either guy puts him at 31 years old at the end of the contract, which is totally fine.
Exactly.
With a guy like Kenny, his game is not based on extreme elite athleticism, like change of direction or speed. His strength is size, height, ability to track the ball, and most importantly, his incredible ability to win those contested balls. And those things aren't going to be affected as much by age. And in fact, they might actually be improved as he gets older with just more practice and more reps. So his career and his play reminds me a lot of Larry Fitzgerald, a similar kind of guy who's not an elite athlete, but has been extremely productive just because he's got such good hands and he can track the ball so well. And I don't know if you remember, but Larry Fitzgerald came out the same year as Roy Williams, who's been out of the league for forever at this point. So
what was
a
that,
guy
2004? I think it was 4 or 5. Yeah, one of the two. So that's like 15 years he's been in the league, something like that.
Yeah. So Kenny Golladay plays the same way as Larry Fitzgerald, so he could have a very long career also. So extending Kenny for 4 to 5 years from the Lions standpoint should not be a big issue.
I mean, you could even look at someone like Anquan Bolden, too, who the Lions brought in late in his career. And even when we brought him in late, he was still pretty productive for the Lions. And I think he played another year after the Lions as well. Didn't he play one more? I think he played one more contract out after the Lions with somebody else.
Yeah, he might have gone somewhere else, yeah.
I believe
you're
so.
right. He's a similar type player. He's just a big physical guy, not fast or quick, but just big and physical with good hands.
Exactly. So I completely agree, and that's the one thing to look at too, though. Like you said, if we extend him out for 4 or 5 years, he's 31, 32. How much are we going to really give him an extension, or what kind of what kind of contract are we going to give him after that? So this could be his only chance to get a really big contract for his the big break in his career.
Yeah. So since we got 2 guys who we're hoping to extend, ideally we get at least one of those guys extended this offseason. That way we have the franchise tag as an option for the other guy. Let's look at the franchise tag numbers for 2020. For the offensive tackle, it's 15 million. Wide receiver, it's 18 million. And that was a surprise to me that the wide receiver tag is so much more than the offensive tackle tag.
Yeah.
So I think we really need a route for Kenny to get signed this offseason so that we can potentially use a franchise tag for Taylor Decker if we can't extend him.
Yeah, which I think is perfectly reasonable. I think 15 million for 1 year for Taylor Decker, and again, depending on his play, to see if he can get another contract or just let him walk in the free agency. But if I had to give you one hypothetical question, and the Lions were only to sign one of them long term, and you had to choose between Taylor Decker or Kenny Golladay, which one would you choose to sign long term?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, my initial response is Kenny Golladay, just because he's been exciting. He's been a third-round pick, this diamond in the rough, and we just don't get those very often in the Lions organization. And our receiver room is old, and we don't have a young guy. We don't have a CD Lamb. We don't have a guy we just drafted that could potentially take over. So it would really concern me if Kenny Golladay left. But then again, the same thing can be said about Taylor Decker. If he leaves, man, you don't know how bad life is when you're playing with a bad offensive tackle. It just gets ugly.
Yeah, we have seen plenty of years with the Lions have had bad offensive lines, so we know exactly how that goes. And that's why, again, I think if I had to answer that question, I kind of lean with your opinion that we should sign Golladay because, again, I agree with everything you mentioned. It's not like we ever find someone, we get lucky and find a third-round pick who could be a potential all-star or top 5 player in the league at his position in the 3rd or 4th round or something like that. But at the same time, when you think back to all the years that we've had bad offensive line, I'm just seeing Stafford run for his life all the time. It sucks, especially with him getting later into his career. You don't want him being sacked as so often. So, like you said, at first thoughts, I'd like to go Golladay, but when you kind of look at it, I think Decker would probably be the smarter. Again, and it comes back to his health and consistency.
Yeah, right. You make a good point about Stafford getting older. He's had 2 back injuries that have cut his season short the past 2 years. So skimping off on the offensive line is a bad idea.
Exactly. But again, like I just mentioned, it comes back to his health and his play too this upcoming year because you mentioned he has had a couple surgeries, but other than that, he's been pretty consistent. So, but same thing with him getting older too. Like you said, he's going to be 27, and if we extend him, he'll be 31, 32 at the end, or depending on how long. So it all depends on how much they think he can stay healthy throughout that time of that contract.
Yeah. So let me tell you what the offensive tackle around the league are making. Number 1 guy is Tunsil at $22 million a year. Lane Johnson, 18. Costanzo, 16. Taylor Lewang, 16. Nate Solder, 15. So the top guys, in my opinion, aren't making that much money. That's a good number to me. If we can get Taylor Decker in that 15, 16 range, I'm 100% good with that. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I don't think he's in like a Lane Johnson or I haven't watched Larry Tunsil too much, but I don't know if he deserves to be the number 1, but I definitely don't think Taylor Decker deserves $20 million a year. But I do think for around 15, 16, because like you said, he has been very consistent. Maybe not top 5 in the league, but he's definitely, I think, worth 15, 16 million a year for 3, 4 years possibly.
Yeah, Tunsil sort of screwed up the market because Houston traded a first-round pick for him, which gave him enormous leverage to get a big deal. Same thing with the wide receiver with Amari Cooper. Cowboys traded a number 1 pick for him. They can't let him walk. So they had to give him a over-market deal.
Yeah. It's crazy how some of those contracts work like that. Because like I said, haven't watched his film too much. I haven't really watched. I know he was on the Dolphins before, and I haven't really watched him too much to know exactly how well he plays. But I don't think he's deserving of that number 1 overall paid offensive tackle.
Right. So another thing you guys might be wondering about is the transition tag. That's the other tag that's less commonly used and less important, but is also an option. So this is what the transition tag is. It's a 1-year guarantee contract like the franchise tag.
Yeah.
That is based on the 5-year average cap percentage for the tag at each position. But the transition tag averages the top 10 as opposed to the top 5 for the franchise tag. So the The tag is a bit cheaper, so it's like $1 million or $2 million cheaper than the franchise tag, both at the wide receiver and offensive tackle position. However, the reason it doesn't get used very much is the tag allows the player to sign an offer sheet with another team, and
To
then the
match it.
original club has 5 days to match.
Yeah.
So what happens sometimes is you get these poison pill type things, or another team is willing to offer Kenny Golladay 22 million a year because they feel like they're a wide receiver away from the Super Bowl, like say the Eagles or the Packers or something like that. So that can expose your guy to getting an over market contract, and then you end up losing him anyway. Whereas the franchise tag, you're guaranteed to have that guy at a fixed known cost for the next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Lions play it out. Like you said, the smartest play, if they're trying to retain both of them, would to be extend Galladay and then hopefully either franchise tag Decker or maybe work out some type of little bit cheaper deal or team friendly deal later before the deadline's up. But as you mentioned too, hopefully, depending on how much he wants to stay with the Lions, if he's willing, because he's already made a few million being a first-round pick, maybe he's willing to take a little bit of a pay cut to stay with the team if feels that we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, who knows how players are actually thinking behind the scenes. It's hard to say. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, it depends on how much these guys are asking for. If they're asking for a reasonable amount, yeah, great, we can sign them this offseason. But if they're asking for something unreasonable, it's not necessarily the team's fault
Oh, yeah, right.
that we didn't extend these guys. They might have just been asking for too much.
And that's kind of obviously I love the part of social media where we get little bits of information that come out like this, but also you only get one side of the story when it comes out. Because like you said,
Yeah.
when it comes out that the Lions are releasing Taylor Decker or whatever, blah, 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 or trading him, or hypothetically, like, and the team just gets all blown out of proportion or Twitter blows up and everyone starts freaking out, but really they don't see what happened behind the scenes or how much he was unhappy with the team or how much his agent was demanding.
Right.
Maybe, again, you only get one side of the story in social media sometimes.
Yeah, it reminds me of Graham Glasgow. He was a good, solid player for us. We wanted to re-sign him, and we're wondering why are we not offering him a contract? Why are we not re-signing him? Well, maybe he was asking for way the heck too much, and so it's not necessarily the Lions' fault that we didn't keep a solid offensive guard like Graham Glasgow.
Exactly. And also sometimes the players just don't want to be somewhere. Sometimes they want to get out and go into free agency and they just tell the team. And again, that doesn't get out. It's not like they're going to come out on social media and say, I said that I didn't want to play in Detroit anymore. So that's why they didn't offer me a contract.
Yeah, unless you're a guy who has incredible leverage like Slay, who
Yeah.
just wanted to get the heck out of here.
Yeah. Well, that's a completely different story. But yeah, like I said, most players, when it comes into those negotiations, they're not going to come out and say, I didn't want to play for the city anymore. So fans see that as teams not wanting to pay their players or whatever, vice versa. But really, it's the players who actually didn't want to be here. So
Right. So the bottom line is, as a fan, from my standpoint, I'm always rooting for our draft picks to sign extensions. Just because I love to see continuity and legacy. I think there's a lot of value in it. Great seeing a guy like Chris Spielman, who's still involved with the Lions, who still feels like he's part of the Lions. He played about 8 years here. He played the last couple seasons with the Bills, but we consider him a Lion. As opposed to a guy like Ndamukong Suh. He played 5 years here, but has played with a bunch of other teams since, and I don't consider him a Lion. Yeah, we drafted him. He played for us for a little bit, but he's not exactly a guy we're inviting back for reunions and celebrating anyway in the future.
right, exactly. I mean, you can even see the same thing about guys like T.J. Lang and Nate Burleson, who same thing. Like we didn't draft either one of those guys, but they came and I know T.J. Lang is from Michigan and stuff, but still, like they just love Detroit and they love the Lions so much that they still consider themselves a quote unquote Lion. Like I know Nate Burleson says that all the time, that he enjoyed the Lions so much that he still considers himself a Lion. So
yeah, love what Nate Burleson for his attitude.
yeah.
So I guess if we have to overpay for either of those guys or both of these guys, let's say Kenny Golladay signs for $22 million a year, my reaction will be, yeah, I wish we could have signed him for less, but I'm still going to be really happy that he signed with the team.
Exactly. And as we mentioned before, his play these last few years has just gotten better, even with a second and third string quarterbacks. So like I said earlier in this show, I would love to see him full healthy season, him fully healthy, as well as Stafford healthy all season long to see what they can do together. Because I think the numbers, he could be Michael Thomas this upcoming year again, depending on how well they can play and how well our offense is performing as a whole.
Yep, I agree with you. You want to see that continued growth, and you want to see that growth with our team. We don't want to see that growth the Packers or with the Eagles or the Cowboys or something like that.
Exactly, because you'd hate to see that. Like again, he's just gotten better and better every single year. Then we let him walk. He goes, like you said, to the Packers or something and wins a quarterback or wins Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers and all that. That'd be terrible to see.
Yeah.
So also one thing we wanted to mention today is that the NFL camps are talking about opening as soon as mid-July, which would obviously be July 15th, and they were originally scheduled to open on July 28th. So they're moving it up a little bit. Things are progressing a little bit faster than we originally thought. So this is obviously a good sign that the NFL season will continue as scheduled. Jimmy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so Albert Breer reported that it, the camps might open July 15th. It's not necessarily a full-on training camp with every player, but it might be sort of a limited rookie OTA type thing.
Yeah.
But it's great to see the NFL trying to open earlier. The reason is from a medical standpoint, it might actually be better to get any major outbreaks of COVID out of the way early before the season starts, because there's a chance that if you get COVID, you get antibodies, and potentially you're somewhat or even significantly immune to COVID in the future, which means the chances of a positive test in the future might be significantly less. So, looking at this from a statistical standpoint, would you rather have a very short training camp and then a bunch of people getting COVID during the season, which is just going to wreak havoc on the season, or would you rather get COVID during training camp and just get that all out of the way? I mean, the whole idea of flattening the curve wasn't necessarily to eliminate COVID and eliminate a bunch of people from getting COVID. Part of the theory was that there's a chance that we're all going to get exposed to COVID at some point.
Yeah.
And flattening the curve was just to help the healthcare system deal with the number of cases at any point in time. So the bottom line is, yeah, I'm happy that the NFL is looking to possibly opening up earlier, and I think that increases the chances that we're going to have a season go off without a hitch.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited. And as you mentioned, it'd be better. Well, again, we're all hoping nothing really happens. There's no more big outbreaks. But again, it'd rather be it now, whether early in the season to get it out the way or whatever, than to have it in the middle of the season and have them just end up canceling the whole season or something like that. So, all right. So that's going to do it for us today. I want to thank everyone for tuning in as always. And we will see you again next time.